Welcome to the Polish Podcast, a space dedicated to emboldening women in their faith and work. I'm your host, Jane Dorman. At Polish Network, we recognize that your work is more than just a job. It's a calling. That's why we're here to provide the connections, development, and spiritual nourishment you need to flourish. Each episode delves deep into topics that resonate with our Polish community. Join us as we hear from inspiring guests who share their unique perspectives and their experiences as Christian women in the workplace. Well, no matter what brought you here today, we are thrilled to have you with us because our aim is to ignite your passion and empower you to excel in your leadership journey. So let's dive in and let's explore together. Spring is blooming, and with Mother's Day just around the corner, it's time to celebrate the remarkable women who shape our lives. Whether you're a biological mother, an adoptive mom, an aunt, a spiritual mentor, the role of motherhood in all of its forms is a vital cornerstone of our community and our leadership development. Mother's Day is our chance to honor these incredible women who inspire and nurture us, especially as women leaders. And today we are diving into a meaningful conversation with our special guest, Teresa Tanner. Teresa is the visionary founder and CEO of Reserve Squad, an organization dedicated to empowering women with the tools they need to excel both in their careers and at home. Her mission is to eliminate this false choice between caregiving and a career while helping organizations thrive culturally and financially. It may sound like a dream, but for Teresa, it's a reality born from her personal journey and experiences in her career.
Started my career out actually at McDonald's Corporation and did a lot of regional, national, and international roles with them. Spent almost 20 years, joined as a teenager and thought I would own a bunch of restaurants one day. Really had an entrepreneurial bend from the beginning. One thing led to another. Started having kids, started traveling a lot, traveling even internationally, and it just took a lot of effort to try to juggle both home and work. And so I ended up working for a small bank in Cincinnati, and then ended up spending 15 years in the financial services industry. And 10 of those, I was actually in the C-suite. So my career moved very quickly and went on to be the head of HR and then the chief administrative officer, and spent about 10 years being in the C-suite of a Fortune 500 company, which, is amazing. Not many women get that opportunity, and there's not enough women in the C-suites of Fortune 500 companies. And I think it's because of that career journey and knowing that, managing family and building my career and all of the things and getting to that level of executive leadership wasn't an easy path. And so really began to feel a stirring inside of me to think differently and to help other people have a different road than I had. And I have a daughter and a granddaughter, and I wanted a different reality for them. So left Fifth Third, almost 5 years ago now. I can't believe it.
Wow.
And Reserve Squad is 3 years old, and decided to start a firm that would give women and men just a different option on how to engage with work. So whether they were taking a mid-career pause or maybe they retired and still had a lot to give, we work with that population to stay engaged in work and then help companies, especially companies with large alumni bases, figure out how to stay in contact with that valuable workforce and leverage their talent in different ways. So it's been a wild ride and a wild journey. And, going from a financial services executive to a startup scrappy entrepreneur has been quite a change for me. But I'm just so thrilled and excited that I get the opportunity to do this at this stage of my life. It just feels very meaningful, and I know that it's making a difference.
Reserve Squad emerged as a solution to a leadership challenge Teresa knows firsthand. The struggle to strike a balance between motherhood and career progression. But what makes this dream turned reality so inspiring is that Reserve Squad not only supports working mothers, but it also drives innovation in how businesses operate.
We have a client that's a Fortune 50 client, and they are a very large global organization who really understands the power of their very loyal alumni base. And so for them, we we help gather that alumni, we manage them in their own custom squad, and we allow the company and help the company tap into that talent pool for, contract or short-term or project work. But then also we've got thousands and thousands of people that fit this definition that we do direct placement with for small and medium business and nonprofit. So anybody that needs any kind of fractional, professional services, whether it's, finance or HR or IT or marketing, or just, temporary assignments, we help match our reservists to those opportunities, which is amazing. I mean, it's as hard as it is being an entrepreneur. It's so exciting to know that people are in jobs and working that they wouldn't be in most likely without, this company. So it's been fun to get those matches and see people find the work that allows them to continue their skill development while making an income.
Well, we're going to take a short break here to share an opportunity with you to connect with the Polish Network. And when we come back, Teresa and I talk about what it means to lead with care and how honoring working moms is a crucial piece to the puzzle. So stay tuned. Are you a working woman looking to elevate your leadership this year? Polish Collaboratories could be your next right step in moving forward in your leadership development. Polish Collaboratories are small groups modeled after executive peer groups, yet available to working women at all levels of leadership. Collaboratory members dive into leadership training with a faith-forward perspective for 12 months. This is your opportunity to tap into diverse perspectives, conquer challenges, and achieve your goals in a united sisterhood. New groups are launching in 2024. We want you to be a part of it. So go to polishnetwork.org/collaboratories to learn more. Now, as a young working mother, Teresa Tanner noticed something about the leadership in the company she worked for. They were all men, and they had something she didn't: someone at home taking care of the house and family. This realization prompted Teresa to launch Reserve Squad, to not only provide opportunities for the working mom, but also to initiate a larger conversation with the company she serves to consider how we lead with care.
Well, I think it's important in any professional landscape, right? I think it's always been important. I think it will always be important. And I think it's just, at a very human level, it's just seeing each other as humans, right? And
yes.
It's when you have a team, it's not just FTE or employees. These are humans that come to work with all different kinds of joy and also struggle, and really understanding who they are as a whole person. And I think that is being more and more accepted in the workforce. I grew up in a time where it's like, oh, leave all your personal junk in the door, and right.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, how do you do that? You're just one person, right? You can't segment your life like that. And we've been kind of told to segment our life like that, and we can't. And so as leaders, we need to see the whole person and understand that there's different pieces of them that is going to affect their ability to really thrive. And so, caring about them, listening to them, making sure that there's a balance between what the company might need and what the employee needs, and seeing both of those things, I think is just so important.
Yeah, it sure is important. And I love that you highlighted this idea of we need to find a way to bring our whole self into the work that we're doing, because it's exhausting to live such a compartmentalized life, right?
And possible, really, right?
It's not possible. It's not like you may think it is, and try and do it and then find out, golly, no, this isn't working for me. And it certainly doesn't serve the company either, to come up as not your full self into the work that you're doing, for sure. And I love that, especially with leading with care, recognizing our humanity and just caring for the whole person. And it's a mutual relationship is what I'm hearing from what you were just sharing there. In your experience, what are some effective ways for leaders to cultivate a culture of care and support within their organizations?
Well, I think, there's a lot of talk nowadays about psychological safety. And I think that comes from people feeling, first of all, safe to be their authentic selves, right? To be able to say, hey, I did kind of have a weekend. So if I'm being quiet in the meeting, I'm just a little overwhelmed trying to process. And a lot of people don't feel safe to do that. So kind of creating that culture of trust where as a leader, people know, hey, you can be authentic, right? And there's still going to be work expectations and there's still going to be, things that we've got to get done. But, having that environment where I can tell the truth, right? About where I'm at and, facilitating that two-way dialogue. So often we want to make sure, our teams have all the information they need to do their job and what we're thinking. And we just want to have this top-down communication. But, caring is listening, right? It's valuing what somebody else thinks and showing them that you value what they think by listening. And again, it doesn't mean that, you are always going to incorporate every single piece of feedback you get, because as leaders, you can't, right? You may have disparate feedback and there might not be total consensus, right? And sometimes, as leaders, we think caring is making sure everybody gets what they want. And that's not true. I mean, think of it, as a mom with our small kids, right? We can love and care about them, but that doesn't mean they get everything they want, right?
That's true.
As adults, we don't get, right? So, but also that just mutual respect and empathy to say, I see you, I hear you, I appreciate you. And let's have this really honest dialogue between each other. To me, that is care. That is saying, I see you as a human. I see you and hear what you're saying.
I'm seeing a through line through all these different themes we're walking through in leadership this semester here at Polished. In honesty is this through line I'm seeing. This, you're saying within the culture of a company, cultivating that, setting this foundation of trust amongst each other of hey, this is a space where we're going to be honest and it goes both ways, and you may not get everything that you want or you think that you need, because there's a whole the company and the organization is larger than just the one individual, right? And I'm just seeing this, I'm hearing this, we talked last month about leading with communication. We talked to Sarah Cuban, who is VP of content for Magnolia Network, and she talked a lot about honesty and open communication is key in her role to connect with her team and the talent and all the things. And I don't know. I kept thinking hearkening back to that conversation when you were talking of just it is crucial to have these cultures where it's safe to give that honest feedback, whether it's from the employee or the employer, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that honesty, it makes me also think about, Brene Brown and how she talks about vulnerability, right? Because, as leaders, we have to be able to model that too, right? If we are always kind of fake it till we make it and stealing up and only having the positive spin of everything, then people around us are not going to feel safe to come with their insecurities or their questions or their doubts. And so, I think it's really important. And, one of the things that I started doing with my team actually here at Reserve Squad, and we don't do it every week, but we've just started occasionally starting meetings with give us your one word of how you come today. And, and there's times where I'm okay, I come tired or I come worried. I'm worried about my mom and I'm worried about what she's going through. And that really simple, quick exercise of everybody just telling the team their word is that vulnerability. It is that chance to say, here's just very quickly what's going on. And also now how I'm showing up to this conversation in case, I'm acting in a way that you wouldn't expect.
So Teresa, I love that exercise that you shared with us of sharing this one word of how you came into the office that day, because I think that is a practical step to, for any leader listening who's leading a team that's how do I cultivate this foundation of trust or this, safe space of honesty and vulnerability within my team? Because I don't know, just thinking of one word that just feels very accessible to me. So I love that you shared that with us. And I definitely feel, like I said earlier, we're talking to a lot of working moms here. We have a lot of working moms that listen to this podcast. And I got to say, sometimes I feel, and maybe this is just from my experience, that working moms can carry this burden on them. They have a lot going on in their head, a lot of concerns, a lot of plates that we're balancing, that we're spinning. I'm sure that's just like this mental burden that we can bring into the office. But, sometimes, I don't know. I think there's a lot of misconceptions about working moms, or even stereotypes. What are some common misconceptions or stereotypes about working moms that you aim to challenge through the work that you do?
Well, I mean, I think first of all, I think all moms are working moms, right? Whether
Amen. Amen. Yes.
By the house, right? Like,
yes.
Yeah, like just being a mom is amazing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it is overwhelming, and it is joyful, and it is scary. I mean, it's all the things, right?
Yes.
And so like moms are awesome.
Yes.
And I also think that it is really easy to feel overwhelmed, and whether you're working outside the home or you're trying to build structure, for your kids as a stay-at-home homeschooler or whatever it is,
right?
I think that it's so easy for women to feel like just never good enough. I just can't get enough done. It's just, there's not enough of me to really excel at anything. So I just am trying to survive all of it. And and I think that's a lie, right? I think it's a lie that maybe we're told by society, we tell ourselves, whatever. Maybe even as women, sometimes we don't support each other as much as we should in our individual choices that may be very different from one another, right?
Yeah.
And so I think we have all of this pressure that we put on ourselves, and I don't think it's necessary. And I had to learn a lot of lessons as I balanced family and work and all the things going up through the ranks. I had to learn that I have to just kind of change my yardstick, right? What's right for you might not be right for me. And
sure.
What success looks like in my head may not be reality. And there might be trade-offs, and kind of back to that compartmentalization. I remember I was working, my kids were at home, and I decided to get my MBA. And it was just like, oh my gosh, and then I ended up picking up another job at work. I was doing two people's jobs, and I barely sleeping. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to crack. And then I started again, going back to this compartmentalization. Okay, I got to be home. I got to put my homework away, and then I got to be with my kids for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, this is crazy. I can't do this. And I remember one night where I was sitting at the kitchen counter, and me and my kids all had our laptops up. And I'm like, all right, you do your homework, I'm going to do mine. And then my son started quizzing me for one of my quizzes that I was going to have at school. And then I started quizzing him. And we really just started talking to each other about what we were each going through, right? And it was such an incredible bonding moment that would have only happened had I allowed them to see everything as a human that I was juggling, right? And sometimes we don't feel like we can even be vulnerable with our kids to say, hey, here's what I've got. And how do we say okay, I can't be at your soccer game, your Christmas play, and do this, but I can do one. So tell me what's most important to you, right? And really bring our kids into that and figure out what success looks like for our family. It's hard. And we have to constantly pivot and learn, and that works. Well, that doesn't work. And just try to figure it out, because it is a really, it's a really difficult thing. And I don't think it's going to get any easier. Right?
No, it's not, unfortunately.
My grandkids, we're all going to be talking about the same stuff, right? It's hard.
It is hard. And I appreciate you sharing that, Teresa, because I feel like I'm in that season right now of just I try to compartmentalize some of my work, because I feel like, well, okay, my kids are home. Once we have school pickup, whatever I was working on has to be put on pause. But then my brain just keeps going back to what I'm working on. And then it's robbing me of being present with my kids. And Like there's some moments I find in the afternoon where like there's like a dead hour where like my kids are involved in different things and they're like happy and content. And I'm like, can I go and work on my thing, while you're doing this? And just, I love this idea of like you said, you were all sitting at the counter and you all had your laptops out and you're like, okay, I'm going to work on this while you work on your homework and we're just going to do this together. And it just was like, I don't know, it creates like mutual appreciation for each other's work, right? Like,
yeah, for sure. And I think that whole conversation about vulnerability and care also goes with our kids. And I think also society has told us, don't be vulnerable with our kids, right? Like we have to be the strong one. We can't bring our kids into our junk. And of course, like there's an appropriate amount of junk you bring your kids into.
Right.
There's also stuff where it's appropriate sometime to go, oh gosh, like, man, mommy's like really pressurized. I've got this big presentation next Monday. I'm really, really worried about it. I might need to check my emails or work on it occasionally at home. And when you bring your kids into that, what you find is they're like, all right, mom, like, how can we help? Right? Like they also relate to the humanness and vulnerability in us, or they're worried about a test. To see us a little worried about the big presentation it opens up a realm of conversation, and it gives them permission to also tell us that they're worried about something, right? So sometimes like that can be such a trust building and bonding experience with our kids. And we don't have to like just shoulder it and try to be the tough person for our kids, right? Sometimes, and again, obviously there's appropriate things to bring them into, and there's inappropriate things to bring them into, but letting them see our vulnerability and our humanness sometimes can be a great way to bond with them and spend time with them in different ways.
Yeah, it's so true. And I like that. I like the sharing our humanness with them. Like I just really leaning into that and like, you don't have to have it all together, mom.
Right.
Like, and I feel like that almost gives a release on both sides of the coin. Like, oh, like mom struggles too. And, just like I do. Yeah, actually I do.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's okay. And we're going to be okay together. Right.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, working moms, they have concerns or they have challenges within the actual workplace as well. How does Reserve Squad address these needs that working moms have in the work that you do, that you've witnessed?
Well, I mean, first of all, we give them an opportunity, like a third choice is what I call it, right? So
I like that.
So often women are like, do I stay at home or do I work? Do I stay at home or I work?
Right.
And so often the flexible type of work that's offered may not be in our skill set or may not be honoring to the education and the investment we've made in certain professions. And so what Reserve Squad does is basically say you can do both, right? There's going to be times where you have to gear up and gear down. And we know that women disproportionately have to gear down. And it's usually for caretaking, whether it's for children or elderly parents or whatever. When the home tension gets too tight, it's typically women that need to downshift. And so what Reserve Squad, we talk a lot about in corporate America, off ramps and on ramps and, leaving the workforce and then coming back. And I'm like, why don't we just create a new lane where people can go whatever speed they want to go? Right. And so
I love that.
Maybe they don't have to it doesn't have to be an all or nothing choice. Maybe it can be, hey, I could do 30 hours a week, or I could do 10 hours a week, or I could do a project here and there that allows them not to have a gap in the resume. They can kind of work when they can for their family, but also keeps them tethered back into their career so that if they ever want to upshift again and go faster in their career, they're in the lane. And so that's what we try to do. We work with companies also around corporate culture to make sure that the workplaces are inclusive for everybody, and that we can create a culture of care where we understand one size doesn't fit all. Everybody has different needs, and there's a way to make a business run in a very profitable way while also allowing employees more choice. And, it's been interesting, Jane, because post-COVID, I think companies have learned that there might be different ways to look at work, right? And I just remember even, financial services industry is notoriously very, very traditional. And I remember, hearing executives say there's no way those jobs can ever be done at home. Absolutely not. Then, well, guess what? They were all done at home, right?
Yep.
Choice.
Right.
And so I think sometimes chaos becomes a catalyst to make us think differently. And so I hope that continues. And I know that there's a balance, right? I mean, I think companies also see, the value of in-person collaboration, and I believe in that too. But we need to look at the different needs of our workforce and say, how can we approach this differently? And so we're also not only offering these different work structures, we're also challenging company cultures to look at talent and that labor supply in a different way.
I love that. Yeah, I agree with you with COVID. Man, like I just admired and I felt like I was in a position of just observing how everybody adapted to all the change that we endured. But from what I observed, the companies that came out on top were the ones who did shift gears. They adapted, they got creative with their vision and was like, all right, obviously working the way we used to know it is not working. So what can we do to increase, our productivity, our profits, our connections to the communities that we serve with the services we provide. And I just marvel at that to see, thinking outside the box, we can really serve everybody well when we do that. And, you had mentioned, working with companies to think of more inclusive ways to, create work environments that are more inclusive. Do you have any specific examples of what that could look like?
With working with companies?
Yeah, just in companies or just what, I hear the concept, we want to make more inclusive work environments. So what does that look like? Or do you have a specific example of this? I mean, maybe even specifically with working moms, how have you seen that play out?
Well, I mean, I'll give an example of when I was in my previous career, we obviously, as a woman and a mom, work-life balance has always been something that I care tremendously about. And,
absolutely.
One of the things that we did was partner with an organization to bring in concierge services to be that extra set of hands, right? Because sometimes it's kind of like, well, we think about flexible work arrangements and this, and I'm like, what women and men really need is somebody to do things for them, right?
I like that.
There's too much on the list. And so I brought, a concierge service in, and this organization literally would take your car and get an oil change. They would go get groceries and put them in your refrigerator. If your son, Johnny, forgot his lunch, they would go get him lunch and take it to his school. It was an extra set of hands. They would run errands, all kinds of stuff, which was amazing. And, it's a benefit that I put in place, oh my gosh, probably 10 years ago now, that's still there.
Wow.
So I started looking at the workforce, which also became kind of the catalyst and the seed that was planted on this solution. I saw that women who had babies in their first year after having a child, they were more than double more likely to quit, right? So that was a big year of tension.
Sure.
Understandably, right? You have
yes,
whether it's your first kid or multiple kids, you're okay, that first year, after maternity leave was huge. And so I started even co-creating with that concierge service and saying, you know what, I think we need something a little bit even different for that population. And then we launched what was called a maternity concierge. So as soon as one of our employees told us that they were pregnant, we gave them their own kind of custom VIP concierge until that child was 1 year old. So this person was they planned their baby showers, they helped them write thank you notes, they helped them research breast pumps. It was their personal concierge that walked that first year with them to make sure. I mean, and these concierges were delivering saltines when they were having morning sickness, to helping them research daycares, just really help them during that transition period. Yeah. And we saw, I think in the first year we launched it, we saw a 25 or 30% reduction in turnover, just because we helped, we helped women walk that path. And so, so I get discouraged, Jane, because really corporate America has spent billions with a B on DE&I or DEI initiatives, and we're not really moving the needle. I mean, if we look at representation at the most senior levels of companies, it's just like glacial progress. And I think a lot of it is, I'm all about like learning and development and talking about unconscious bias and all these things, but we need real structural, systemic tools put in place, right? And that was
Yeah.
my part around Reserve Squad. It's like, okay, we have to build new workforce structures because the way work is structured today ain't working for everyone, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Like these, flexible hour benefits are great, but like people need an extra set of hands, right? Let's really, and that kind of goes back to the care and part of the maternity concierge solution was because I was doing a town hall with women and and I'm getting up there doing all the corporate, like, look what we have here with benefits and look what we have here. And isn't this great? And a couple of really brave women were like, it's really hard to have a baby here or disability, like benefits, and just started really kind of pushing back. And I really, really so appreciated the courage to do that. And in that moment, I said, you know what? If you have a passion around this, would you meet with me afterwards? Can we do a deeper dive focus group? And really just listening to, this is why it's hard in that first year. And I learned all kinds of things from, we didn't have nice breast pumping rooms, right? Or enough of them, to some of our disability, to I'm having morning sickness, right? So all of these things came together to like, okay, let's put real solutions in place. And I think that's, when you talk about how do you help cultures, it's like, first of all, we need to help cultures listen to people better, right? And
yes.
then respond to it. Like that kind of comes back to where you started around this care. Like, I need to truly care what your real lived experience is. And then I need to figure out, how do I put systems and structures and new things in place that addresses that. And again, like all of the learning and development, things like that, I don't think those are bad things, but they have to be accompanied with also systemic and structural change.
Yeah. Oh, it does make sense. And kudos to those women who spoke up to just say, hey, it's really hard. And like you were saying, it does go back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the show, of just like setting that foundation, that safety, to be honest within your team and to be vulnerable.
Exactly.
And what I love about it is you just didn't listen. You took action. And golly, I would love a concierge service to help me out.
I kind of miss it myself, Jane.
I'm sitting there going like, is that still available? Like, I don't know if you're familiar with the book Unreasonable Hospitality. Have you read? No. Are you familiar with it?
Unreasonable Hospitality?
Yes. I forget who the author is, but he and another guy were partners in running this really well-known restaurant in New York City. And it's like their story of how they took it from, it was an okay experience to like this, like 3 Michelin star experience and #1 restaurant in the world type thing. And they talked about this idea of unreasonable hospitality. We're going to create an experience. Like, you're not just coming here to eat our food. We're going to create an experience. They would figure out ways to get information about, customers that would, make reservations ahead of time, and have one waitress overheard that it was this group that was visiting New York and was their last night, and they just were really bummed that they never had a New York hot dog. And so somebody went to a hot dog cart, got it, and they prepped it, and totally surprise and delight. That was the 2 words that kept coming to mind throughout the book, is just how can we surprise and delight? And having a concierge service like that, an extra set of hands, listening to that feedback from your team. All I could think of is unreasonable hospitality. How could our businesses transform with this mentality? Because it doesn't just, the author of this book was this is what we did in the restaurant industry, but this could really apply to all business industries in general, if we could just be a little more creative. And that's, I don't know, that's just what stirs my soul when I listen to that. Golly, Teresa, I really just appreciate you sharing that with us and just sharing some of the ways that Reserve Squad is serving working women and the businesses that are hiring them, and just keeping these skills up and supporting women and their needs. And just really leading with care. What advice do you have for other working moms who may be struggling to find that balance or navigate their careers while raising a family?
Yeah, Jane, I really think it just goes back to readjusting your yardstick. I bristle when I hear people say it's not possible. Like, just give up on work-life balance. It's not possible, And
Right.
because, and we've heard all kinds of different things from, let's not call it balance. Let's call it integration. But for me, it's a little bit just about just have different measures of success and talk openly with your kids about, hey, this is our family and this is our dynamics, and let's all work together to figure out how we do that. And, there's a silly kind of lesson that I learned around Halloween costumes one time. I had a sister-in-law who is amazing, and she had been a stay-at-home mom for most of her kids' life, and just the kind of the Pinterest crafty kind of, just amazing. I mean, she's smart, she's beautiful, she volunteers, she's just it's just amazing. And I went to her house one time, and she was showing me these very elaborate, very cool homemade costumes that I think must have taken her months to make. And it was a few days before Halloween. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't even have a plan. I think my plan was to go to Walmart or to go to that Halloween store the night before and let them pick something out. And I just felt so worthless, And so often we do that, right? We look at what you're doing or what another mom is doing or what Pinterest tells us or what Instagram is showing. And we're like, oh my gosh, we're failures. And so I went to put my kids to bed, went out to the store that night looking for inspiration, ended up buying yellow and brown fur. Now, my mom had taught me how to sew, so I'm like, I got this. So while my kids were asleep, and literally I did not sleep the entire night, I sewed all night, and I made them a horse and a duck costume.
Oh my gosh.
Out of my brown and yellow fur. Now, never did it occur to me, why would my kids want to be a horse and a duck, right? I just felt like I had to make this homemade cool costume. And, fast forward, what they really wanted was a cheap $20, in the bag costume from the Halloween store. And I'd done all this effort and stressed myself out. And it didn't even really add value to the kids, right?
Right.
It's you know what? Sometimes the cheap Halloween costume is enough. Sometimes you don't need the homemade cupcakes. Stop at Kroger, right? And we just feel like we're not enough unless we do it at this A level. And sometimes it requires C level work, right? And we just have to adjust our idea of what success is and know that and stand confident that only me and my family can define that. And what you think about it really is irrelevant.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Readjust the yardstick, redefine what success means, because that looks different for your family compared to another's.
Right.
And stop comparing. Comparison's the thief of all joy. I've learned that lesson time and time again.
You never win at that game, right?
No.
We're always going to feel less than at that game.
Exactly. We're hitting pause for just a moment to let you in on exciting possibilities to be part of the Polish Network experience. Coming up, Teresa's stepping into the hot seat for our Ask Me Anything segment, so stick with us for more. Recent reports indicate that isolation, loneliness, and lack of leadership growth opportunities weigh heavily on working women today. And these are just some of the many reasons why the Polish Network is on a mission to embolden women in their faith and work. And we invite you to join us as a Polish partner. Visit polishnetwork.org/give and help us ensure a steady foundation for women to find the vital community they crave, the professional development they deserve, and the gospel they need. Well, welcome back, friends, to the Polish Podcast. We hope you're enjoying our conversation that we're having today with our guest, Teresa Tanner. Now it is time to add a dash of spontaneity and a sprinkle of fun to the show. It's time for Ask Me Anything. So, Teresa, this is how Ask Me Anything works. It's a chance for us to peel back the layers, get to know the woman behind the work, the quirks behind your expertise. I'm going to ask you a few questions that I and our audience have curated, and we're just going to follow our curiosity to learn more about you. Does that sound good for you?
Great.
Awesome. Well, to kick things off, we are curious, who has been the biggest influence or role model in your life and why?
Oh my gosh, in my entire life.
In your entire life. No pressure.
Well, I got to say, first of all, my faith is so important to me. So first and foremost, God has been my biggest influence.
Amen.
And I just, it all starts and ends with that relationship. And, I don't even know if I can say the biggest influence. I think there's been so many people that have been influenced, or I've been influenced by, both of my kids have influenced me in different ways. My daughter, I watched her fight cancer when she was a small child. And,
wow.
I learned so much through watching her battle and through that struggle. And just in general, it surprises me how much I have grown and learned and been influenced through the valleys in life. So often we think about these mentors or these peak moments, but so much of my life has been also shaped by the valleys and those that have worked in the valleys with me and been shoulder to shoulder with me in the valleys with me. And so I know that kind of didn't answer your question because I don't
That's
really
okay.
answer to it because it's not just one person. I think it's been a tribe and a community of people that have just walked life with me.
Yeah, I love that. And those voices that have met you or walked with you through those valleys, it's almost like they're God appointed. It's not almost, it is God appointed voices that he knew that you needed in that season of life. And I love how he provides that for us for sure.
I do too.
Yeah. All right. My second question is, we've been talking a lot about working moms and motherhood. Looking back, what's one thing you wish you had known before becoming a mom?
Oh my gosh, there's 1,000 things I wish.
I know. There's so much. I wish there was a manual.
Probably, and we talked a little bit about this, probably that even though I don't know everything and I will get things wrong, and we all do as moms, right? We are going to make mistakes. We're going to continue to make mistakes. I have adult children now, and I'm going to continue to make mistakes. But I wish I would have known that just it is enough and I am enough, right? And that, even in those moments where I feel like a failure and a bad mom and that I've made a bad choice or I've scarred my kids indefinitely, right? Right. That no, you're enough, right? And it is going to be okay. And it's all going to be good. It's just what I wish I would have known.
Yeah, no, lots of mistakes are made in general. And I think that's a word for all of us is, I'm enough. It's enough, especially with God in the mix for sure.
Right. That's right.
Yeah. Oh, my final question for you, and this one's a little wacky, but if you could swap lives with anyone for a day, living or dead, real or fictional, who would it be? And what would you hope to experience or learn from that day?
Okay, so this is going to be kind of silly right now.
I like it.
It's totally at the top of the headlines. I would love to be Taylor Swift for a day.
Oh, stop. Okay. Yes.
Not because of the money or the fame or Travis Kelce or any of that. Right? Yeah. I think it's because just to experience being in a place with tens of thousands of men and women, but mostly women, united in song and passion, the energy that she must feel has got to be so overwhelming. And I am a lover of women, Jane, as you know, right?
Yes.
And hearing tens of thousands of women belting out a song that came from the depth of my soul, I just think that would be amazing just for one day. Now, I would not want to live her life more than one day, but for just one day to feel that energy and that love would be, I think, amazing.
I resonate with that. I think that would be pretty cool. That would be a cool experience Did you see her when she came to Cincinnati?
I did not, but I have tickets this year to see her in Indianapolis. So,
Indianapolis, perfect. Yes, I did not see her in Cincinnati. I know it shut our whole city down pretty much when she came to town. But my sister went inside in Florida, and I think she has tickets again or she's trying to get tickets anyway. She just talks about it like like you said, the energy in the room. It was insane. And everybody's singing at the top of their lungs, every single song.
I'm not even Swiftie. I'm trying to like get all, like up to speed before I go to her concert, but just seeing the phenomena and seeing just the love and the passion, like of so many women has been really cool and inspiring to me.
Yeah, same here. I think it's really cool. Oh, Teresa, thanks so much for sharing a little bit of more with us. And here's the thing, friends, we want you to be a part of the conversation too. We want your questions. We want your wonderings about our guests. So if there's something you've just always wanted to ask, now's your chance. Go to our website at polishnetwork.org/podcast. Be a podcast MVP and send in your questions there. Discover the transformative power of leading with care at our Polish Network chapter gatherings. This month, we will explore the multifaceted ways of leading with care, including breaking barriers to giving and receiving care, strategies for navigating meaningful care in professional settings, and addressing feelings of being uncared for in the workplace, among other ways. Explore the intricacies of care from micro to macro levels and uncover how it shapes our personal and professional life. Engage in vital conversations, share insights, and build a supportive community centered around leading with care. Don't miss the opportunity to join the conversation. Visit polishnetwork.org/chapters to find your nearest event and RSVP today. Teresa, thinking about this concept of leading with care and just the conversation that we've had, leading with care in our own professional and personal interactions with each other, how can we incorporate more empathy and support into our leadership style or everyday interactions with our colleagues, our friends, and our family? How do you think we could go about doing that?
Well, I think, curiosity is a good start, right?
Yeah.
Just being curious. And I think when we start with curiosity and not with preconceived notions and just ask people about themselves and draw them out and show that we really want to know about them. We value them as a person, I think is a really good start.
Yeah, I love that. Curiosity is key, I think, especially in cultivating our empathy muscles, if you will. I just, based on what we talked about and how you shared about Reserve Squad and different ways that you are trying to create these inclusive work environments, we're looking ahead to the future of the workplace and how you're challenging, how businesses look at supporting working moms. How do you hope Reserve Squad will continue to contribute to that vision?
Well, first of all, I want a world where everybody knows what being a reservist means, right?
Yes.
And that they are free to make the choices that work for them. And there are structures in place that actually honor that and don't penalize. Because I think so often we are penalized for working outside of traditional lines that are drawn. And so, for me, it's people feeling like they just have ultimate choice and freedom to do what's right for their family while also not sacrificing, having the opportunity to use the gifts they have. Right. I think that, people feel, purpose is so important, and to feel like that blend of purpose and having all, a part of me doesn't have to die in order for something else to thrive.
Yeah, I like that. Something in us doesn't have to die for something else to thrive, because that's encouraging. That's encouraging as a working mom to hear that. It's like, yeah, we need to remember that and realize that, and lean into the places that God's calling us. Especially if it's back to the workplace, and I'm thinking of that mom right now who might be listening, who's a working mom, and she might be just struggling to find that balance between her family commitments and excelling in her career. What word of encouragement would you give to her right now?
Well, I think the same thing that I said to you that I wish I would have known. It's like, okay, it's enough. Like, right. So quit beating yourself up, right? Like you,
right.
I know it feels rough right now, but today is just enough. And then tomorrow will be enough. And it's okay not to know all the answers. You just have to do what's best in the moment and make the decisions that you can make based on the facts that you have in front of you right now. And, there's not any kind of magic pill of advice I can give you, Jane. And I think we all look for that, but it's not.
Right.
It's just, we have to lean on our faith. We have to lean on our family and our tribe. We have to be willing to ask for help and not feel, to feel bad about that. And literally, I am almost 56 years old, and I am just now learning how to be specific with how people can help. Right. And it's hard because we're like, okay, we can do it. And supermom. And, here I am like type A, Enneagram 3. And now I'm like, this is crazy, right? I can't do it all. And I'm also robbing other people of an opportunity to support me who genuinely want to support me. And so, all of those things are how we kind of get through and make it from day to day.
Yeah. Well, I think you're doing some good work, Teresa, and I just appreciate you coming on here and sharing your heart with us. And just, I don't know, this has been an encouraging conversation for me. And I feel like I'm learning a lot from you and your story. And I think this is going to encourage a lot of our listeners that are tuning in today. Teresa, before we wrap things up, how can people connect with you or follow along with the work that you do?
Sure. So reservesquad.com is our website, and My Reserve Squad is our social channel. So just would love to kind of see you online. And, obviously, if you have any feedback for me or any questions, you can also reach me at teresa.tanner@reservesquad.com.
All right, perfect. We will link all that in our show notes. So if you want to connect with Teresa, go check that out there. We'll make it real easy for you. Yeah. Teresa, thank you so much for coming on today. I don't know about you, but I think Teresa said it best when she pointed out that all moms are working moms. Can I get an amen? And while our lived reality may all look different, we all struggle with very similar things like the pressure we put on ourselves to excel or the unrealistic expectations that haunt our perceptions of how well we're doing in general. Like Teresa encouraged us today, I think it's time to change our yardstick on how we measure success. You are doing great work, Mama. Do you have a different takeaway from today's conversation? Well, if so, let me know. Share your thoughts for this episode in our Instagram post, or if you're watching on YouTube, you can share it in the comments below. Let's continue the dialogue on leading with care. As we wrap up this episode, I want to express our heartfelt gratitude to everyone who plays a role in making the Polish Podcast a reality. The Polish Podcast is made possible in part by the generous support of Coca-Cola Consolidated. A special thank you to Teresa Tanner and the trailblazing work she's doing through Reserve Squad. You can learn more about them in our show notes. To our loyal listeners, your unwavering support and engagement drive us to deliver content that resonates and emboldens. Thank you, Polish Network, for creating a nurturing community where women in the workforce can thrive and connect. A big thank you to White Oak Christian Church for their partnership and contributions to the production of these episodes. So as we continue to navigate what it looks like to lead with care, consider the practice Teresa partakes in with her team that fosters the vulnerability we need to form connections with one another. So,
give us your one word of how you come today.
If you're looking to be emboldened in community, be sure to stay connected with us on our social media and our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and please take a moment to rate and review the Polish Podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Well, until next time, friends, this is Jane Dorman signing off. Keep moving forward and remain emboldened.